Hi, I'm Lisa Rubel. Oops, it hasn't started yet. Okay. Hi, I'm Lisa Rubel, and I'm here with my son Jojo tonight. And we are going to show you how to make a confetti heart postcard. And we've got a couple ones to show you that we've already made. And we've got a little delay on our end between what I'm holding up and what I'm seeing. Hopefully you're not running into that issue as well. But the postcards that we made use little pieces of confetti to make the heart shapes. And then on the back, we've added a printed sheet to make it look like a little postcard with a heart and with the lines for writing. And you can actually send these in the mail. And I want to show you, actually, this is one that my mom made and sent to me a couple years ago. And she used a different piecing technique in here, but same idea. And you can actually send these through the mail. The best way to do it is to put them in a clear plastic envelope, or they could go in a paper envelope, but that defeats the postcard part. But if you get like a cellophane envelope, you can put a stamp on it, put your message on it, and send it just like that. So it's a nice alternative to a traditional postcard, to a traditional Valentine, to send this little postcard. So we've got a lot of moving pieces to put this postcard together, but it's a fun technique. And as Jojo will tell you, the best part is hands down the confetti. So we're going to get started by having Jojo cut a little confetti. And we are fancy tonight. We've got two different views. So I'm going to switch over to the view of the cutting mat, and I'll kind of go back and forth as there's different things to see. So scooch up a little bit so that they can see you. Scooch up this. So what we've done to start out with is we have a bunch of solid fabrics, and I recommend solid because either side works. And so we have pieces that are about roughly 2 inches by 4 inches long, and we've stacked them up. I wouldn't stack more than 4 or 5. We maybe have more. I have a brand new rotary cutter blade, and then Jojo's going to tell you what he's doing as he does it. What am I doing? You're cutting.
So
you're cutting 1/4 inch, roughly
1/4 inch distances apart,
making a bunch of strips, and we're just going to leave them sit there so that we can also cut in the opposite direction. But he's not measuring, he's just eyeballing because the confetti doesn't need to be perfect. And you'll notice he's got the cutting glove on. He's better about using it than I am, and but it's, for safety so that no one cuts themselves. I've got a little scar with 11 stitches from a time when I cut myself, so Jojo always uses the cutting mat. And then he's going to rotate, and he's going to keep cutting in the other direction. Now this works nicely if you can rotate around where you're cutting, because you don't want to move all of those pieces. And you want to make sure you press nice and hard so it goes through all the layers. And he's just going to keep cutting roughly 1/4 inch strips, which at this point are now making a bunch of little squares. And while he finishes that, I'll show you. Here's some of the confetti we already cut because we wanted to have enough. Okay, you want to put that in the bowl? And then why don't you talk about what you did after you put the confetti in the bowl the last time? You can do it again.
So after you put the confetti in the bowl, you want to make sure that you don't have any pieces that are sticking together. So you like just shake it around, and if you want to, you can put a small ruler on top of like a bowl. Then you can just shake it as hard as you can for a couple seconds, and it mixes them up nicely.
Yeah, that really helps to loosen the confetti. If you've got pieces like that, just pull them out. We can just skip that. So, and when we made this earlier, Jojo was touching the confetti, and he said that this is just a nice little stress reliever on its own. It's you know, soft and comfy and just really nice to kind of feel your hands through.
Yeah.
So we've got our little bowl of confetti, and I recommend having a bowl so that when I did this the first time, I did not have a bowl and I had confetti all over the place. So have a little bowl to put your confetti in. So as I mentioned, we had 2 different styles of this that we're going to show you. And the first one, we're just going to put the confetti right on a fusible adhesive heart. So it looks like this. And then we'll talk about how to secure it down. So talk about how we put this on the back.
So we put a piece of fusible fleece on the back of our color fabric background, and we fused it on, and then we took a heart-shaped,
and here's our heart template is right here, and the link for where to find the templates will go in the Facebook comments and then on YouTube as well. But we traced the heart shape onto
a piece
of our
fusible web.
Right here, our HeatnBond Lite Sewable iron-on adhesive. And then we cut it out, right?
Cut it out, we pressed it on, and then we're going to peel off the paper.
And if you look, you can see the shininess, and that's where the fusible is. And so now what we're going to do is bring the ironing board over and just do this right on the ironing board, because then we don't have to move it before we press it. Sorry, like I said, we've got a lot of moving pieces here.
So now we're going to take some confetti and we are going to sprinkle it on top of the heart shape. We're going to try and spread it out as best as we can so we don't get a lot of bunching up, like in the middle. And we want to try and cover all of the fusible that is on the fabric so it doesn't fuse to, so it doesn't
make sure all the fusible is covered, but if the confetti is stacked too thick, some of it won't be touching the fusible, so it won't actually stick in place. And that will happen, but we can also, you know, do our best to make it as thin of a layer as we can, and then the quilting will help to hold it down. You can see how JoJo's adjusting the confetti to really to make it have a heart shape. Maybe need a little more at the top there.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you will have it where it's kind of multi-layered, and that's okay. We'll shake a little off and work on it as we go. But yep, try to cover up as many holes as you can. I should just leave it alone. You're doing a nice job all by yourself. So the most important thing I want you to take away from tonight is that pressing paper is your best friend. And so anytime that we're pressing tonight with this confetti and with the fusible fleece and with the interfacing, we are using a piece of pressing paper. It's got a shiny side and a paper side. So we're going to put the shiny side down on top of our confetti, and we're going to press. And with this, you're just going to set it down, and you're going to let the heat bleed through, because it's got a lot of layers to go through to get through that confetti down to activate the fusible. But using the pressing paper makes sure that if there is a little bit of the fusible adhesive showing through, it won't stick to your iron. And you can see I've got this cool new Oliso mini iron that we're using tonight, so I definitely don't want to get anything on on my brand new iron surface. So anytime you can use pressing paper, it will help protect your ironing surface, and your project. So JoJo's going to keep pressing that down, and again, we're going just in areas, not rubbing it back and forth. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at that. So now here's the trick now. What you want to make sure you don't do, and I'm going to demo it with this, is you don't want to lift it up and shake. Because while many of these pieces are adhered, they are not all adhered. So at this point, your next step is to very carefully take this straight over to your sewing machine, and we're going to quilt it down. And I will show you, I did that step already because that's sort of a time-consuming one. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and you can see this one that I did. And yep, JoJo's holding it up. That's great. And what I did is I took a neutral colored thread. I didn't have a green one that matched that background, so I went with with gray. And I just stitched straight lines, vertical lines, about a 1/4 inch apart. I used the edge of my sewing machine foot. And by doing that, you pretty much catch an edge of almost all of your confetti pieces because they are about a 1/4 inch apart. And so that holds it in place. So this one, I'm willing to turn upside down, and you can see nothing is coming off. So after you do that quilting, your confetti will be secured in place. And if a piece or two comes off, well, then that piece wasn't meant to be part of your Valentine. So we're going to move this out of the way, and we're going to talk about, actually we're going to move the iron out of the way. We're going to talk about the other method for the front, and then after that we'll talk about how to put the backings together. So this is what our second one looks like, our second method. And it starts out the same way, but what we're ultimately going to do is to put, you can put a piece of tulle over this, tulle like the Tulle, like bridal veil material, and then sort of a reverse applique shape, and that will help to hold your confetti pieces down. So for this piece, we're starting with the same heart shape cut out of our HeatnBond Lite. And I saw someone in the comment had asked about the Lite, if they needed to use that particularly. That just happens to be my preference. I like how it kind of disappears into the project and you don't end up seeing a lot of it. So that's why I use that. So we've got a 6x8 piece of muslin. And what we're doing for this whole project is everything is starting at 6x8, and then we'll trim it to 5x7, and it gives us some wiggle room. So Jojo's going to take the iron, he's going to press that heart onto the center, roughly the center of the muslin with our little iron. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the first project, with the confetti on top of that fusible piece. Okay, is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, you want to pull the paper off. Yep, it is. I'll give it a second to cool. And at the same time, so this one's going to have a dark gray cover on it. So I've got another heart, and on the template you'll see there is a thick heart shape. And so what I do is I use, for when we're putting the confetti down, I use the outside line of the thick heart just to have a little bigger surface to play with. And then for this reverse applique heart, I'm going to use the inner line. And that just makes sure that this heart is smaller. Okay, so Jojo's got, you can see our heart shape on the muslin, and he's going to do the same thing with the confetti. And then what I am going to do is I've got this heart shape, and I'm going to use my pinking shears to create a fun edge as I cut through this heart. But because I'm doing a reverse applique, I'm going to keep the outside of the shape, and I'm going to get rid of the inside. So I'm going to cut into it, and it doesn't matter if I keep that heart nice, because what I want is the outside. That's the bonus of having two people on the Facebook Live, is we can multitask and show you even more by doing two things at the same time.
Yeah. So when you're doing this second method with the reverse applique, you do not actually need a perfect heart shape. You can go like a little bit outside and make sure that it's all evenly coated, because we're going to put the piece on top, so it'll turn it into a heart shape.
You don't need the edges, you're right.
Even if it isn't perfect.
You are correct about that. I'm trying to hunt down my tool piece. So then once JoJo has his confetti all in place, he's going to do the same thing as before with the pressing sheet.
Shiny side down.
And he's going to press it in a couple different spots because it takes a little bit for the heat to get through. So the nice thing is with, we're going to use the tool on this. Here's my little cut piece of tool, which is almost invisible. But we'll put that over the confetti, which means that you can have fewer quilting lines and still hold all the confetti in place between the fusible adhesive we're using and the quilting lines. Okay. And what you can do when you're doing this yourself is to sort of, look and test, and if it feels like they're not down, you can definitely go back and do some more. So then I've got a piece of tulle about the same size that I'm going to put over the top like that, and that will help to secure all of the confetti in place, especially if it's a little thicker. And then same as with the green one, we're going to go and do some stitching. Now if you look at my sample here, you can see I did, because it's being stitched underneath our applique, we have not added this yet. You can do whatever kind of stitching you want. So I did a bunch of just random lines that would hold the tulle in place over the confetti. But you can do straight lines, wavy, curly, do the heart shape, whatever you like. But just to secure the tulle and the confetti down to your background piece. So we're going to pretend that this is stitched and move on to the next step, which I want to show the back of that.
So we have the piece of Fusible on the back of this, and we're going to peel off the paper stick, and when we have it peeled off, we are going to put it on the heart and try and line it up so you've got confetti on, or pretty much all confetti.
Nice job.
Once you have it lined up, you're going to
Pressing cloth.
put the pressing on.
Especially with the tulle. So you want to try to stay to the sort of the outside edges because tulle and irons don't play that well together. So you want to press more around the outer edges of the heart here to get this to secure in place. Okay. And so like JoJo said, with putting this reverse applique piece on top, we are creating the heart shape over the confetti. So, the confetti might extend a little bit out here, but you're not actually seeing that because we've got our pinked edge heart shape here. And you don't have to use a pinking shears for this heart. I just happen to like how it looks. And so there we go. We've got our dark background piece fused on top. And so at this point, the next step is to stitch directly around the edge of the heart to just help secure this in place before you pop it in the mail. So when I did this one, I stitched around the edge with black thread just to hold it in place. And then after that, I did the quilting. And the quilting you can see I did with the light pink thread here. I just tried to do a little bit of echo quilting. It's not perfect, but it was kind of fun to play around with that on such a small project. So at this point, much like with our green one here, is when we're going to quilt it with the fusible fleece on the back. And so we're just going to quilt the front half of this. So it will end up like this one here. And now we're going to work on the back part. And you can see me pulling stuff off of the back of this one, little schnibbles of thread and little pieces of confetti. And that's because when I made my first round of samples, I learned the hard way that the back side of the postcard is a little bit more transparent. So if you have thread pieces or confetti, anything that's not white, it will show through. Which is also a good time to mention another tip, and that's when you do the machine quilting, no matter what color you use on the front, choose white for the back, because when you have this white postcard on the back, if you have a darker colored bobbin thread, you'll be able to see it through the postcard. You can actually see, like right here, I had a little thread scrap that snuck in. So that's one way that you can learn from what I did the first time. So for the back of the postcard, we are going to be using these HeatnBond Inkjet transfer sheets. And what it does is again, I've got the template that you'll be able to find the link to, and you put this paper in your printer, follow the directions for which direction to put it in so it prints on the correct side. And I cut this piece in half. So after I printed it, the template comes with 2 pieces. But after I printed it, I cut it in half to use 1 piece at a time. And we're going to use the heat from the iron to transfer this shape onto our white piece of just white solid fabric. And on the back of the white solid fabric, we're going to use a piece of, grab it, the Craft Extra Firm Fusible interfacing. And that's just to give the postcard a little more body, so it's a little stiffer. But another thing that I learned the hard way is you want to put this on before you do the ink transfer, because you're getting the heat on this side, and it's just better to do it before you add more heat on the other side. So JoJo's going to use the pressing sheet again. I've got the Craft interfacing shiny side up, and we're still working with 6" by 8" pieces, and he's going to adhere the interfacing to our solid white. And because it is solid, you don't have to worry about which is your right or your wrong side, because they're both the right side. And so while he's doing that, I'm just going to show you my postcard back. So this is the interfacing on the back side, and we used heat to transfer this printed shape onto the piece of white solid, and you can see we've got the address lines and the little heart up in the corner. Now, the template itself does have a black line around the outside. That will end up not being on your finished project because it's just a reference point for you. It is, this rectangle it makes is 5 by 7, so it will ultimately be trimmed off, but it allows you to see where exactly your postcard edges are. Okay? We ready for this guy?
Yep.
Okay, so we've got our solid fabric up. Let's just make sure we don't have any little threads on it. And we're going to take this transfer piece and put it face down. And it is smaller than our 6 by 8 piece, and that is on purpose. And we're going to use the pressing sheet again. And so the directions that come with these transfer sheets, you want to talk about what they tell you to do?
So on this, it gives you ironing times. So for a half page, which is what we're doing for the postcards, you are going to do a total of 90 seconds of ironing. Mm-hmm. And you're going to go like up and down across the paper with the iron. And
lots of zigzags, right?
Yeah, zigzags.
Okay. Why don't you go for it? Do the zigzags. You could probably even turn the iron facing you for
like this?
No, other way. There you go. Make it a little more comfortable for your hand. And so while JoJo's doing that, I'm going to talk about what comes next, because this will take about 90 seconds, and as fun as it is to watch him iron, we probably can cover a couple other things at the same time. So our next step is going to be to trim. That's true, I can do that. There. Our next step is going to be to trim both our postcard back and our postcard front. And so we're going to trim both of these to 5 inches by 7 inches. And as you're doing so, you want to make sure that your heart is centered as much as possible in that 5 by 7 inch frame. But that will allow you to get the little edges off, and this also shrinks when you quilt it, so that will take that into account. And on the postcard back, you can just basically cut, use a ruler to double check, but basically just cut on those lines and it will be 5 by 7. And then we'll have 2 pieces, the exact right side up, the exact same size that we will then put together and do our last step of making the postcard. Okay, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Okay, let's switch back to this view. Okay, let's take a look. I wasn't actually timing it this time, but we'll take a peek, and as long as it's peeling up nice, we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, let's take a look.
Uh-oh.
Nope. Nope, looks like we need a little more time for that. So I'm gonna let JoJo do that off camera while I do the trimming, and we'll come back to that. So go around the side.
Fell asleep.
So I've got my 12-inch square ruler here, and if I measure my piece, it is about 7 3/4 by 6. So I'm going to actually put the 3.5-inch line on my ruler down, roughly down the center of the heart, and that's how I know that it's pretty straight. And then look, and I've got about a 1/2 inch above, about 3/4 above and 3/4 below. So I'm going to trim this.
How do I get the paper to stay down?
And then, nope, I have to do it a little bit more. So sometimes when I'm trimming and trying to center something, I end up trimming multiple times on each side just to get it as centered as possible. And it's worth it to do that if you end up with a shape that looks really nicely centered. Okay, I think I'm just about there. Okay, so that was the tricky part. The easy part, like I said, is this backing, which is the fused, the printing that we did, and then the solid fabric and the interfacing. And I'm just going to trim, you know, on those printed lines, and then they ultimately are not going to show. Okay. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Let's take a look. Oh yeah, here we go. So to do the great reveal, not quite. That's why we had one pre-made, because you don't know how long it's going to take when you're doing it on camera. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I've got the 2 postcard sides here, and I'm going to use basting spray so that I can attach these 2 sides together like this. So I'm actually going to go off camera here real quick where I've got protective paper and put the spray on. Okay. And then add this postcard front with the confetti on top. So now my back and my front are spray basted together so they will hold while I do the outside stitching. And so for the outside stitching, you can see I did a zigzag stitch, and this one I did in red, and the other one I did in pink. And so it's just a matter of, I think it's fun to use a Valentine color, but it's a matter of what color you want. And for this one, you do want your bobbin thread to be the same color, because then you'll have that color on the back. And so I set my machine for a fairly thick zigzag, but also a fairly long zigzag, because what I want is when the needle goes to the right, I want it to be just off the edge of my sandwich, of my postcard sandwich. And that will create sort of this nice finished edge of your postcard. So you can kind of play around with that, you know, try a little bit and see if you've got the thickness that you would like. All right, JoJo thinks that he's got this. Let's see if we can do a reveal. Oh, beautiful. Look at how nice that comes off.
Mostly.
Well, but the part that we lost is the black line, which is fine because that's ultimately not going to be on it. But we've got the cute little heart in the corner and the address down here. So the lesson with the transfer sheets is patience, lots of patience, which when you're doing a video and wanting to keep things moving is a little tricky.
Or
but
if you're a 12-year-old kid.
Or if you're a 12-year-old kid, as JoJo says. So, okay, come on back over and sit down. So like I said, your last step is to go around the outside edge with a zigzag stitch and some colored thread, and that will finish the edges of your postcard. And at that point, you can use, some sort of fabric marker or a very thin Sharpie, write your message on it, address it, and then put it in a cellophane envelope and send it along. So that is our confetti heart postcard tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and can follow along and make your own. You can see they are really fast. So even though Valentine's Day is next week, you definitely still have time to make a couple of these. And they're also very addicting, aren't they?
Kind of.
Especially making all that
Confetti.
That confetti. So
Don't throw some confetti.
Don't throw some. If you throw it, you're gonna have to clean it up.
Okay, I'm not gonna throw any
he's not
confetti.
gonna throw the confetti. So the one last thing I was gonna just show you before we finished. I was going to do this at the beginning as people were joining, and then we had some tech issues, and so I just wanted to get started. But on my blog, I've got, in addition to the link to this Facebook Live for tonight, I've got a couple other heart tutorials, some that I've done for ThermOWeb and some just for fun. So I'm just going to give you a quick show and tell of those. This is one that I had done for ThermOWeb using 10-inch squares and Fusible adhesive, and it's a puzzle heart, and so it actually ends up making 4 different hearts, and then I just made it into a mini quilt. And then here is a heart silhouette using reverse applique and traditional applique. And then another one just using mini pieced hearts, all done in solids. And then I did with my strippy improv technique, if you saw my last Facebook Live, I did these in like candy conversation heart colors. And then also here's a strippy improv heart pillow using some sort of Valentine-y colored prints. And then this also is part of the strippy improv pattern. It's a baby quilt that has chenille it around all of the reverse applique hearts. And then last but not least, an XO Hugs and Kisses door quilt, which is pieced and appliqued. The X is pieced and the O is appliqued. So if you're looking for a couple last minute Valentine quilty projects in addition to making postcards, hopefully that will provide you with some inspiration. And then I see JoJo took off his sweatshirt so you can see his Free High Five shirt, which was a tutorial he did for ThermOWeb.
Last early fall, I think.
I think it was right at the end of the school year, so May.
Yeah, end of spring.
But this was an idea that JoJo thought of and
just did.
Made on your own, and then there's a tutorial for it. Mm-hmm. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for dealing with our tech issues and our learning to work together on camera. And I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you again next month. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, hang on. Okay.